Hi, my name is Anais, and I'm here to show you how I made this classic black slate mid-century floor for less than $5,000. Welcome to my channel. This is my very first YouTube video, so please bear with me. I'm gonna do my best, and we're gonna start by talking about this amazing floor and why I ended up doing it myself. So I purchased a mid-century, not modern, like a classic L-shape, kind of like bungalow style house. One of my first project with this house was to bring it back to the state of the art of the mid-century era, adding the mid-century modern element to the house, which was missing. This type of flooring is absolutely gorgeous, and you find it usually in architect-made, beautiful, maintained mid-century modern houses that you see in, you know, ads, in movies, in your favorite show, and you're like, oh my god, that must be the dream. But those houses usually go for $5 to $10 million. It's very expensive and actually pretty rare to find, even in Los Angeles. I didn't have that type of money, obviously. So I got this bungalow and I was like, all good. I'll renovate and I'll add the floor myself. So the first thing I did was, of course, to reach out to about 3 to 5 contractors to come visit the house and tell me what did they think was possible to be done. And the first thing they said is like, that's going to cost you a lot. And after they told me the entire process that it will take and the amount of manpower that it will take and the amount of days that it will take, well, you guess it. The quote was around 25 to $50,000 depending on the contractor, and it was way too much for me. So you might be saying, well, Anais, this is a price for a beautiful floor like that. This is not that crazy. Well, maybe it's not, but it was for me. I didn't have the money for that, so I had to find another solution. Let's get started. I'm gonna try to make this video as easy, as short, and as simple as possible. And of course, you can put all your questions in the comments and I'll try to answer as much as possible. And I can always do some follow-up video if there is anything else that you want to know more in details. Let's go. Step 1. Source your stone. Of course, like I said, you cannot really step inside a Home Depot and ask them for a natural black slate. They won't have it. They might have some like perfectly, square shaped one or smaller pieces possible. But what you want is the bigger pieces, the raw pieces. So you can really start using the biggest part as you can and then cutting them to make them feel a little bit more worked out and especially avoid the ragged edges. That is for several reasons. Of course, you want it to look good, but you also want it to be comfortable when you place it, that it won't shift away, that the grout will be set easily in between the stone, and then at the end, when you walk on the flooring, you do not have any sharp edges or anything that is like catching on your sock or hurting your barefoot. So your stone. In my case, I was lucky. I am in the West Valley side of Los Angeles, San Fernando, and very near my house, there was a place called Jacoby Construction, and they were selling a bunch of material, including natural stone. And they had beautiful raw black slate from India. So I bought 2 tons initially, thinking that will be enough. I ended up needed 3 tons totally. 1 ton of black slate was about $700, and that was in 2020. So it might be a little bit more expensive now, but you get the gist. That's about that price point. And step 2, prep your stones. So when I say prep your stone, that means literally cut your stone, shave your stone. It means polish your stone. It means even to rag the back of your stone if you really want to be meticulous. So the first thing is to pick a stone and use some kind of crayon or like a stone marker to place a line on where you want to cut it. Keeping that piece, not keeping that side, that type of things. And once you cut it, like the rough part of it, you know already what you're working with. If the surface is relatively smooth, you can just like use a soft sander and go above it, which works most of the case. In some cases, the stone will be like already accidented and will have like a different type of layers on it. And then it's really simple. It's like you have to take the tools out, your hammer, the chisel, and really like remove that top layer of the stone, because black slates is really made with like very thin layers of stones. It's like a millefeuille of stones. So you can easily like remove one layer or two or more to get to a level that is like more smooth than the rest. Takes a little bit of time. You might need to have a little bit of like muscle power to get it out, but I was able to do it. So as you can see, it takes a little bit of time, but it's doable. And each stone is really unique. So you have to do it one by one, which takes a lot of time, and evaluate each time what each stone is going to need. So when I say I used a sander, I used a very basic circular rotation sander, not too powerful. I did sand a bit with a more stronger tool with an angle grinder that I kind of like changed the head to be a sanding pad, and it worked, but it was too powerful because this is a natural stone, still fragile, and you don't want to go too deep, too strong, because it's gonna take away some of the depths very quickly and create some denting. You don't want that. So I would say be patient, take your time, and use a nice regular circular sander, and just do it enough time that you get the smooth surface that you want. Once your stone is like nicely smooth, that the surface is like as pristine as you can go, and again, it's up to your desire and interpretation of what, smooth is, then you just wash it several times with a heavy sponge, and do that with every single stone in the crate. Step 3, clear your floor. Yes, I mean, that seems like self-explanatory and rather evident, because that's what you will do with any type of flooring. If you had to add new tiles or new like wooden floor, you will have to clean your floor. So remove whatever is on it, goes to whatever surface that is as flat and smooth as possible. In my case, you can see that the house, which was a mid-century house, had some former vinyl type of tiles, and there was still this thick black glue underneath, which I didn't bother sanding or removing. It was flat enough. I just cleaned it as much as I could. Dusted, of course, cleaned it a bit, trying to remove any debris that you can find, and call it a day. So it will depend, of course, of what type of floor you have at home, what type of situation the house you have, but just make sure that this is as flat, as plain as possible to receive the stone on them. Now we are entering in the part that is a little bit more critical to success of this project. Puzzle your big stones. So yes, the idea was, how do I get this perfect effect of like bigger stone, small filler stone, like, this like organic looking floor that seems so, effortless. And at the same time, so you have those massive stone and you're like, how do I go from that to that? Well, place your big stone first. Like I said, your big stone they will have some ragged edges. So cut as much as you can, but not too much, because try you want to try to keep as big of a stone as possible to really have this nice plain like floor. Place your stone next to each other, try to already create a pattern, but don't be scared to have some gaps in between them. Even semi big gap, it's still fine. You'll fill them. That's where the magic is going to happen with the smaller stone. Step 2 of phase 2, fill the gaps. This is by far my favorite part. Really much, because that's when I felt like I broke the code. So at first, in that first section of my dining room, which was my first attempt at making this floor, I was, cutting pieces I found, kind of cutting them the edges, trying to fit it in. And, it worked. It was fine. but it was not perfect. And so I was like, wait a minute, I'm just gonna work with paper and scissors, the good old way. So that's what I did. And suddenly everything started to take place because if a piece of paper is cut and you don't like the way it looks in terms of shape, you just scratch it, move it, and cut another one. And you do that, all your little paper scattered around in between the big stones. When you have them ready, you take the paper and find one of the middle size or smaller size stones that you still have, place it on top of it, and then cut the edges with a, that's another advice. At this stage, you should have purchased a wet saw. So a wet saw is non-negotiable with that. First of all, because it's gonna save you so much time than if you were to cut it with another tool. It's also gonna be a lot more safe, and it's gonna like save you a lot of issue with the dust. So once you install your wet saw, just take your paper, put it on top of one of the stone, middle or small, and just cut following the edges and place it back. This step, as much as fun and enjoyable, at least if you do enjoy puzzle like I do, takes time. So save yourself at least a full day to do that because you're gonna go back and forth, first in cutting the paper and then cutting each stone one by one to fit in. But once everything is put together, it's like the hardest part of the job is pretty much done. Step 3 of phase 2, number your stones. So this one is also a part of the process that I learned through the process. It's not something I did in my first phase in my dining room, and I paid the price. So you imagine that when you install your floor, eventually you're gonna remove them to place the mortar and put them back. And then comes the moment of like, oh, where was this smaller one? Was it there or there? So no, you don't want to get there. It's a headache, it costs time, and it actually can possibly ruin the entire work you did previously of puzzling all your stone together beautifully. So you're going to take your little crayon and you're going to number your stones. Every single stone, even the tiny one, put a little number on it. You're going to number them from 1 to 64, 96, depending on the size of the flooring you're working on. But you're going to number all of them. And then you're going to take pictures of the floor, section by section. And if you really want to be good, you're going to be printed out and make it like a full like collage of your floor so you can re-puzzle your stone easily as you are applying the mortar and setting your stone. Phase 3, step 1, set your stones with mortar. Well, yes, that had to happen. And that's really similar to any type of flooring. Of course, when you work with vinyls or even like those like fake wood or even with some type of tiles, you can use a glue, you can use something a little bit more plastic, easy to work with that will stick enough to maintain it. But those stones are heavy. They're also um, they're also very smooth. You know, you could have racked up a little bit the back of your stones if you wanted to be very meticulous and spend time doing that, which I did on some of them, but not on all because it's so much work. So I was playing with, you know, a material that was just different than the tiles you buy from the store. And the best way to get it to really be settled to your floor is to use an old school mortar. So mortar is messy, mortar is heavy, it's hard on the body. If you don't have an outdoor space, it's going to be even harder to work with it. But really, just do it. The way I went about it was, of course, to work on the floor step by step. I didn't do my entire house at once. I worked by sections, and that was allowing me, I didn't have to make too big of an amount of mortar each time. So one very important thing here when you place your stone on the mortar, I will advise to start with your thicker stone. Because again, those are natural stones. They're not like tiles you buy in the store. So they all have a different thickness. Some will be easily like an inch tall, like an inch high. it's going to be very thick of a stone. And then some others will be maybe a quarter inch. Like, you go from 2 centimeters to 5 mil easily. And you're going to have to make all those stones sit at the end at the exact same level because you want your floor to be level. You don't want it to be, difficult angle, ragged when you walk on it. You want it to be plain and flat. So to keep the level in mind, start with the thickest of the stone. You'll know it easily. There will be one or two significantly thicker than the other. Place your mortar, not too much at that place because the stone is already thick, so just place the minimum level of mortar you can put. Set the stone. Use your mallet and hammer it a bit to make sure that it adheres to it perfectly. And then you work from there. That thicker stone will be your reference for the level. Meaning that for the other stones that are less thick, you're going to put more mortar to kind of reach that level. And use a short level to kind of measure between stone by stone. And then use a long level to also make sure that from one side of the room to the other, it's all leveled. Okay, now your stones are set in mortar. They cannot move anymore. Whatever is done is done. It's there. And we can say that you enter like the finish line with your floor. So rub your floor, rub your stones. Absolutely. So when you work with mortar, even if you're extremely neat, which I am not, but William, the handyman I hired to help me with this project, was really neat. So he tried to keep it as clean as possible in the process. But still, you're gonna have some splatter. You're gonna have some splatter of mortar around. The edges of the stones are not gonna be perfect, and you want it to be as clean as possible for when you're gonna put the grout. Rub your stones. So mortar is heavy and annoying, but it's actually quite easy to remove from the stone. You can use a chisel to just like rub it off, if it's a little bit of a thick amount that has dropped somehow on your stone, or just use a very good old school sponge. And so that's what I did. Water, soap, and sponge, and just rubbing in, and using a little bit of the chisel to, smooth off the edges and make sure that overall the stones are clean and welcoming for the grout. The next step is, of course, time to grout. So I imagine if you guys are watching this video, most of you already know how to work a floor and you know what is grout and how to do it. Let's just take a minute to explain very quickly what it is for the people who are watching this video and have no idea what it is. So when you place tiles on the floor, you need something strong to stick them to the floor. That is our mortar. And then you need something to fill the gaps in between the stones or the tiles. That is what we call grout. Grout, of course, is in the realm of mortar, cement, those type of materials, but it has a plasticity to it. So you have two types of grout, sanded and unsanded. Obviously, by the name, one has sand in it, the other doesn't. So when it comes to regular tiles, those small like 6x6 square that you put together in your bathroom or in your kitchen, you use unsanded grout because it's a very narrow, like few millimeters, like wide gap. No problem. But with those stones, you're gonna have a gap that is bigger than those usual tile. And then you want to make sure you use sanded grout. In my case, I went for a medium color gray. I wanted something that contrasts with the stone, but also is dark enough that it doesn't get dirty too easily because when you do flooring, believe me, I can get to that when we talk about the kitchen, because going with a very light grout is not a very good idea. Now you know the drill. You place your grout, you wait for it to dry a bit, and then you wash, and you wash. When you wash, that's again an advice for people who are not familiar with grouting. You want to make sure that the grout is dry enough that it doesn't go away too quick when you wash it. Just so you can play with the amount of grout and the level you want it to be compared to your stones. Because you have power over that. You can make your grout lower than your stones, or at the same level than your stone, which is up to your preference. I wanted something very smooth again, also to be comfortable when walking around the house barefoot. So I went for a grout that was exactly at the level of my stone. And so I had to be a little bit particular about it. I had to be very precise and patient to really get to that perfect level. And yeah, that takes a little bit of time, but I love it. I mean, if you wear gloves and you don't burn your hand, which I've done, of course, first, well, it's a very enjoyable process. It's like very therapeutic. And finally, the last step, time to finish your stones. So that's again personal choice. You can totally go and keep your stone natural, bare. They're beautiful and they have a natural protection. Again, slate is a natural stone you find usually along rivers. They are very good with water. No problem keeping it, bare and plain. In my case, I wanted to have a little bit of a gloss effect. So I wanted to add a finish over it that also, I apply over the grout just to make an extra protection for both durability and keeping it clean. First thing first, clean it. Might be a little bit of grout splattered there. Grout is more plastic than the mortar, so it's going to be a little bit harder to remove it than it was with the mortar. So just use a stronger sponge, just, get on your knee and get at it. This is still a phase. If you really need to, you can still use your sander, either sandpaper or your circular sander, and just like smooth it out if you really need to. And then once your floor is absolutely pristine and clean, and when I say pristine and clean, dust and all, then you can pass the layer of the finish. I would say 1 to 2 layers probably. You don't want too much because if the finish is too thick, it might peel. You don't want that neither. So in my case, I really just did 1 to 2 layers depending how thick the first one was. And here on this video, that was for my hallway. It was a little bit more narrow, so I did by hand. I just went on my knees and, placed the finish stone by stone to make sure it was done properly and not too rough. So one takes a little bit more time. It's up to you. Et voila, you let it dry, and 24 hours later, your floor is done. You can walk on it, you can drop a drink on it, and you can just enjoy your life with your beautiful mid century classic black slate floor. Thank you.